What's up, guys? Welcome to the Mindful Movement. My name's Tyler. I'm joined here with John and Caroline. Today we're going to talk about a couple things to do with recovery and, just kind of introduce ourselves to the community. I know we're new here and we're just starting this thing off and, we're getting used to it. So, bear with us. This is going to be our first episode today. And we look forward to having you guys, tune in with us and, enjoy what we enjoy, recovery. How you doing, John?
Yeah, we might not even publish this.
Yeah.
This is just kind of starting it off, bro. Chopping it up. Caroline, it's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you nervous?
Yeah,
Look a little
very
nervous.
nervous. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay.
I'm not used to like sitting and bantering back and forth with a big light over me.
Yeah. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
No, we're here. I'm here. I showed up.
Yeah, thank you for showing up.
You showed up. Thank you guys
Yeah.
for showing up.
Yeah.
No, for real.
What Well, first of all, finally we got
Finally,
we got it done.
We got this going.
Been
Yeah,
looking forward
we
to
got
doing
this
for a
going.
minute. Yeah, we just want to kind of the whole goal here is to do a little something different, right? Add some flavor to it, some as they say, a vibe, whatever the case may be, and just rock out. I know I'm not gonna hold back. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be transparent. I got a wild story. I'm gonna fucking use it.
Right.
The curse words may slip. Like, this is not for little kids to watch. You know what I mean? This is for whoever wants it, really.
Yeah,
but
I like that.
You know what I mean? We just, I've been
be
doing
yourself.
this for a minute with with a good friend of mine, like on another level, and this is like our opportunity. Like, we've been talking about this for a while to just kind of like really get the word out.
To have a platform and to be able to reach people that we haven't maybe been able to reach thus far, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
Because the goal
great
here,
platform to have.
yeah, the goal here is to help people, as much as possible, and to get the word out, and to like really show like what recovery can be, but with multiple avenues.
Right.
Not just 12-step based, not just holistic based.
How
like,
it looks from all different perspectives.
Exactly.
Because there's something that works for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, and we would like to, just get that out there and really show everybody, like, hey, you don't need to get sober with AA. You don't need to just get sober with church. We have all these different avenues, and we have people that have experienced all of them. And you being our first one.
Well, that's exciting.
The coolest part I've learned about this kind of thing too is like, right now we're gonna get something out of this ourselves, right? Like, just having you on, like, you're gonna hopefully get something out of it, just being able to tell some of your story and get some of these things out, and then like we and that's really it. So if we can help one person, which we are by doing this with each other, like
right,
it was a win. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no
Right.
losers in this thing. So
Absolutely.
that's why I think it's cool.
It's gonna be a good bonding experience too, guys.
Yeah.
We're gonna bond on a different level,
That's
huh?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So let's
You're in.
start. Where are you
Yeah.
from?
I'm from Georgia originally, born and raised.
Okay.
Born and raised Georgia, Gainesville, Georgia. Born in Royston.
Gainesville, Georgia.
Gainesville, Georgia, not to Gainesville, Florida. We don't like Gainesville, Florida.
I figured, right.
Go Dogs.
Oh, shoot.
Here we go. Go Dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. There you go. We just lost our Gator contingency.
Yeah. Thanks, Caroline.
You're welcome. You're
Yeah.
welcome. Big split household, but my side's definitely the Bulldogs.
Okay.
But we have some jackets in our family too.
Okay.
What's it? No one knows what jackets are. I do, but-
Georgia Tech,
Okay.
Yellow Jackets.
Okay.
They're playing.
Dogs.
They're playing my team. They're playing Florida State in Ireland on Saturday.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
The first college game in
That's
Ireland.
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Should be
That's
dope.
cool. That's an experience.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, pro sports are doing that now too. Aren't the Eagles playing in
Brazil.
Brazil?
That's
Correct.
kind of cool.
First time out
Switch
of
it up. Yeah.
switch it up a little.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Yeah.
Nice.
So tell us about obviously you growing up in Georgia and like kind of what you got into and kind of like what led you to us, really, right? Like we wouldn't have met if you didn't go through certain things in your life. So
Sure.
just kind of get into that a little bit, like how you grew up, household, and we'll
Okay.
kind of go from there.
All right. So I was adopted.
Okay.
12 hours old. My parents adopted me. My parents couldn't have children. So it's actually a really funny story. You guys ready for it?
Mm-hmm.
My pediatrician met my birth mother in AA
Really?
in Gainesville, Georgia, and she was pregnant with her second child, who was me. And she knew that she couldn't take care of me, and she was looking for somebody to adopt. And so my best friend, Ashley, and her mom were going to the pediatrician at the time because my mom's a pathologist, so she worked at the hospital. And they came in one morning and said, "We found you a baby girl, and my parents have been searching for 8 years for a child." And here I am. They came back. I disappeared for 3 months, where we found out that my birth mother was in county jail because she was a drug addict, alcoholic herself, still struggles to this day. And came out about a month before I was born. My parents had me within 12 hours.
Wow.
And brought me home.
You said you disappeared for 3. What?
My birth mother disappeared for 3 months.
Okay.
They had no idea where she was. Couldn't get in touch with her lawyer. Couldn't get in touch with any family. So my parents were devastated.
Yeah.
They thought that they had lost the opportunity to have a child.
Wow.
So it's I've always thought it was kind of funny that
Mm-hmm.
my birth mother met my pediatrician in AA.
In AA, yeah. And then here you are,
and then here
all
I am.
these years
yeah,
later.
I've always
yeah.
said I've always had a seat.
Mhm.
I've always had a seat here.
Yeah.
It was just about when I was gonna come.
Yeah. Yeah, you had the allergy, you just didn't activate it yet. Yeah.
Right. And I also didn't grow up around it. My parents are what you would consider they don't have addiction or alcoholism, in them. So I didn't grow up around it. So it's very funny when I take that and look at nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what first thought was coming to my mind.
I did a lot of digging on that
Yeah.
in my late teens when I found my birth family later on.
But I feel like a lot of times nature versus nurture goes both ways.
Absolutely.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can kind of, like, depending on what your argument is, you can kind of you have an argument for both sides.
Yeah, no, I definitely, looking at it now after many years of searching for an answer, I guess you could say, I definitely have qualities of my birth mother. There's things that I can't run from. I have to accept them. I have to know that they're there. Mental illness is something that is very, big with her. My birth mother, in the time that I have known her, has tried to commit suicide 3 times. I don't have a relationship with her, that's a whole different story, but you have to know it's there. But I was given opportunity and a different perspective on life by my family. They raised me in this very loving household where I don't think that would have been provided had I stayed with my birth family. I was raised in a very conservative family in Georgia. I come from a very big church family. My grandfathers were both ministers, and so so you can only kind of imagine the life. I'm a Southern Baptist, so that's kind of how I grew up, and I don't think I would have gotten that. And so those values come into play. My values that my home has taught me have come into play where that could be questionable. In my bloodline with my birth family.
What could be questionable?
My values. If I would have been raised, not saying that I don't know how I would have been raised. It didn't happen. But the values that were instilled in me in my nurture played into a big role in my life. I feel like I'm friends with my birth sisters, and end of the day, you can see the difference in us, and we all grew up in different households. But then you can see the similarities.
Yeah, because you all come from the same blood.
Because we all come from the same blood. There's definitely similarities there, but it's about what we've done with them.
Like we were just saying, with you coming from a whole household, can you just tell us a little bit about how a Southern Baptist girl from a family with 2 grandparents that were preachers ends up in AA? Can you just give us a little bit maybe about how that happened?
I can give you the quick.
Yeah.
So I've always been told my entire life, I've always known I was adopted. Always knew, that my birth mother and my birth father both have problems.
Okay.
My parents didn't hide that from me. I thank God for that. I never felt like I couldn't ask questions with my family. And, grew up in church, grew up in the youth group, grew up playing sports. I did pageants. I'm your typical Southern girl. I was a competition cheerleader, and I did beauty pageants.
Yeah, real Bible Belt.
And went to church camp every summer. I did a thing when I was 16 and I got pregnant. And that changed my life in more ways than I can even tell you. On so many different levels. And I've had to really come to terms with that. I've had to learn a lot about that, but that's later.
Yeah.
My parents moved me from anywhere I had never known. Family members, like my little cousins, weren't allowed to know. I felt like I had committed the ultimate sin. And I felt like I was just the Jezebel of the family. I wore a promise ring to not have sex before marriage, and here I am 16 and pregnant.
Call me, what's Jezebel? I don't know what that is.
Jezebel is a whore in the Bible.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Got it. I should know that.
In layman terms.
Oops.
In layman terms, yeah. she
Perfect.
was a whore in the Bible. So, so that, that's kind of how I felt. I felt very isolated. I was pulled out of school, and that wasn't really like. It was a very traumatic event.
Were you into like getting high before that?
No,
Okay.
no. I say this all the time. I was in psych wards before drugs and alcohol was ever even a thing.
Wow.
1013 is what they call them in Georgia, and I took many trips.
Is that like Baker Act?
It's like a Baker Act.
We did we went yesterday. We did a. Did you see what I posted? Did you? I tagged
No,
you
I
in
looked.
it.
I looked, but I couldn't find
The
it.
training.
So we went to a Baker Act training, and I posted that. I said it's because it's mind blowing to her and I, having known her story a little bit. We know a little bit about each other, and to be on the other side of it, and we're with all these professionals now, and these guys on the stage talking
Feels weird,
about
right?
when you have to Baker Act somebody, and like we've been in those handcuffs, I've been tied down to the stretcher. I'm thinking,
Right.
and I'm going through all these things, and I'm like, well, I don't know if that's how they really handle it. You know what I mean? They brought a sheriff up there.
Yeah, never had the
So
sheriff
I've
come
actually
out.
been there.
Yeah.
This is the real experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they never read me my rights. I mean, they just
Probably
I
should
didn't know
have.
I had
Yeah.
rights.
Right, yeah.
I was an adolescent.
Right.
Taking trips. So, that's always been a big thing. So after I had my son, I continued school. I finished school on time, which I was very surprised because I had a very rough pregnancy. I was too young. I was, I was a baby having a baby.
Single mom?
Yes. My parents, my parents were there.
Your dad wasn't around?
No, he went into the Army, and we tried to work it out, and he was just not ready to commit to that. We were, we were both young. A lot of people say I use that as an excuse, but it's how I see it. I gave a choice, in or out. He chose out, and that's okay.
Yeah.
What do they use as an excuse?
Say that one more time.
You said that they say you use that as an excuse.
That I use that us being young.
Oh, like you give them a pass kind
of
thing?
Like I kind of give them a pass, like, oh, he was in the Army.
No one else's business,
it's,
right?
it's really not,
Yeah.
and my thing was I would rather have, somebody stable and a great father figure in his life, and my father stepped up to the plate, and I am beyond blessed for that. I have an amazing young man.
Yeah, he's a good kid.
You guys have heard about him.
Yeah.
Like I have something better. Like he's better than I ever was, and probably ever will be. But that's the goal. That's the goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To produce in that way.
I think you're spot on. And again, it's hard for me to kind of comment, but like with my own kid, right? Like I knew for a fact that when my daughter was born, I was like, I was much better off not being around my kid because I was going to be like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I was strung out on drugs. I'm not saying a whole different story, but the same kind of thing.
Oh, it comes in.
You know what I mean? Like what am I going to do for my kid if I'm 1 foot in, 1 foot out? Like I knew one thing was for sure, I wasn't going to get sober. You know what I mean? I wasn't going to get my life together. So it was like I decided to like separate myself.
Right.
It was crazy sick thinking, but I think you're right. Like, why do you want someone that's not going to be totally involved in his life?
Right.
And he's not willing to do that.
Right. Because you definitely want consistency, and like no, that's a part of my story too that I shared that later on, I was not present, and my parents stepped in and they did the right thing whenever I went through my own battles, but the one thing I knew as a parent, and I think you just touched on it perfectly, is that I knew when to step out.
Right.
I knew when I was no longer healthy, and that I, as I can go ruin my life all I want to, but I'm not going to drag him through it, and it's one thing I'm very proud of, actually, and it took me a long time to get there. It took me a very long time to get there, but it's something that I think over time, his best interest was always met, and that's something I've told girls even along my journey is like girls who want to go back and be mothers right away. The first thing I say to them, and it's because I had to have somebody say it to me. You're not being a mother. Stop calling yourself that.
Wow.
And I had to really accept that about myself, that at the time that I was not well, I was not fit, Most
And to
definitely.
get well, you have to work on yourself too,
Mhm.
right? Like I tell that to guys all the time
Mhm.
too, because I hear the same bullshit excuse that I used to use,
Mhm.
like, you know, when they want to leave treatment or
I
something.
gotta
Like,
get
I
home with
gotta
my
get,
kid.
I gotta go be a dad. I'm like,
When were you
You're not
being a
being a dad.
dad?
when were you
Right.
ever dad? Because I wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
even when I was
same thing.
present, I wasn't present.
I might have physically been there, but
Yeah.
emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, I was bankrupt.
And that
Yeah.
energy, that negative
Mm-mm.
energy
And they
that we
can feel
bring
it.
to it, they can't even understand what we're saying, but they can feel us.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And it was tearing my kid up. So
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, like you that, and it is the hardest thing for them to understand because in their mind, right, or in our minds, like we
Mhm.
want to be like when
Right.
when I take the drugs out of me and I'm in treatment or in whatever wherever I may be,
Mhm.
like I realize like I want to be a good parent, but
Right.
I don't have the capacity to be. I don't know how to be.
Right.
So it's like,
Yes.
and to understand that like I try and tell my buddy right now who came through our place, he's got like almost 120 days, you know,
Mhm.
and he's starting to realize it now.
Mhm.
But he's like he couldn't get that like not being with his kid is the best
the best.
father he could be.
Yeah.
Forget about what you've done in the
So
past. We'll
hard.
work on that later.
Mhm.
But like in this moment, like working on you and like
Mhm.
you were saying is the only way.
Mhm.
It is the only way to get back to where you want to be.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know?
And that takes time. That I mean, for me,
Mhm.
that took
Years,
time.
yeah.
You know, that was a year's process.
Mhm.
Um, and later on, you know, in my story, I go through that again with him as a young man.
Wow.
You know, so it's hard, but you know, kids change your life.
Yeah. And now
For
does
sure.
he understand the full spectrum of like why you had to do what you did and
Oh,
you know
yeah.
kind of separate yourself, and does he understand that it was for his benefit? Because now he's a young man,
He is a
right?
young
I know
man
that's
now.
hard for you to like kind of wrap your head around, but
I know. Oh my gosh.
is it like
He's
conscious for him? You know, does he know like, hey, my mom
mhm.
really like it was almost like the ultimate sacrifice for you, right? Because you had to put your son to the side to get better so that you
Mhm.
could be a mother. Does he understand that?
So it's really funny. Actually, a couple months ago, we had this conversation, and it's a conversation that has happened multiple times throughout the years. You know, I was a very big believer on like age appropriate
Mhm.
conversations, and as time comes, you know, like as time goes on, and the older he got, because my journey started when he was 6 and he's now 17.
Mhm.
So over time, those conversations have gotten more in depth, and we just had one a couple of months ago that you know reminded him, and he is in full agreement, and he's my best friend,
Yeah,
dude.
that's awesome.
Like he's
I
my best
love that.
freaking friend, and
Yeah.
I was just on the phone with him before I came here because he called me about something and it was whatever. But it's a joy to have. But you know, I've always reminded him that every move I've ever made, whether it meant that which mainly meant that I was the one suffering
Mhm.
so hard because I didn't want to do that, but I knew I had to, was for his best interests at all times because I love him so much.
Yeah.
And now as a young man, he understands that more.
Mhm.
And I think, you know, for a long time he was very angry, even when I was well. You know, he was very angry because he didn't understand.
Mhm.
And he had the right to be.
Right, 100%. I
Right.
have never faulted him for his feelings.
Mhm.
I've never gotten mad at him. I have never tried to belittle his feelings because like they're
Yeah,
valid.
they're real.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
his.
Mhm.
And you know, over time I've had to suffer him being mad at me over
Sure.
my actions, but they're temporary.
Mhm.
I've always known that. And over time, as he grows and as his brain grows and as his feelings as a young man grow, he understands more and more, you know, and he's probably one of the most compassionate and empathetic people I've ever met. He wouldn't want you to know that, though.
Yeah, he takes after his mom, you know? Yeah.
You know, he wouldn't want you to know.
Mhm. No, it does sound like you did make the right decision, and you know, like look at you now.
Right.
You know, like after all of that, you do have almost like this perfect scenario kind of play out.
Mhm.
You know, where he is your best friend, and you have
Mhm.
your parents in your corner, and
It didn't
you were
feel
just
like
up there
that,
with
though.
him. You know,
Mhm.
yeah,
It didn't feel like that in the process of it, though,
Mhm.
especially in the very beginning.
yeah, a lot of guilt.
A lot of guilt, you
Mhm.
know. My biggest thing was I would always say I don't want to be like my birth mother. I don't want to be her.
Mhm.
You know, don't want to be her, and I
Yeah.
was ending up her.
Mhm.
You know, and
Which
so
is not unique either, right?
No,
we
it's
we
no.
see that all the time, and you feel like you're the like
You see, yeah, but at the time when you don't recognize those feelings because I've been masking them for so long, you know, I don't want to be like her. And as time goes on, I am so cliche.
Yeah, you were starting to look in the mirror, look a little familiar,
and it started to sick. It made me sick.
I had that situation with my older brothers. Obviously not completely as deep as like a mom and a son, but my brothers were 15 and 13 years older than me. I talk about it when I tell my story all the time. In the early 80s, my first memories were my brothers causing chaos in my house. I'm 4, they're 19, smoking crack. It was again like the late 80s, early 90s, and I always had a resentment, like I never want to be like that. I'm like, they fucked my whole family up. My parents were separated over it, and it wasn't until I started doing these type of things that I realized, and then once I got into recovery and I read things like the doctor's opinion, you know what I mean, and started to understand what not only I was dealing with, but what they were dealing with. It really helped me with my resentments towards them to understand, like it talks about, and and it depends on what literature you read, but no human power could restore us, the same, like that includes our kids, right? And that's why it's so important that we now on this side of it don't use anymore. We don't put it back in us, right? Because we don't need to get into like the allergy and whatever the phenomenon of craving and the obsession. But once I do take that first one, that's the important thing to understand. Is my daughter no longer is number one on my priority list.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, and there's nothing that I can do to stop it.
And there's nothing that anybody can say to get me to stop.
Yeah, that's how powerful it is.
Tell me that doctor's opinion, right? Again, and just understanding that what I suffer, or I guess we can say we suffer from, it really took a lot of the guilt and shame before I even got into the work, right? It made me understand what I was dealing with. I was like, oh man, maybe I'm not this big piece of shit.
Maybe I'm not so bad.
Yeah, right.
Maybe I'm not so bad.
It is I'm not a bad person trying to get good. I'm these cliche things, of course, right?
Yeah, but it's the truth.
It is.
I had
it's
a
kind of
similar
relieving
experience.
to know.
Absolutely. I remember my first AA meeting, sitting there all quiet, kind of sitting in the corner, and some guy was like, that this is normal, right? And I'm like, there's nothing normal about me, 18, 19 years old, sitting in a room full of a bunch of drunks. And the guy's like, no, we get better though. This is normal. It's okay. You're not a bad person. Right. You were just getting high for so long doing bad things. It doesn't make you a bad person. If you take the drug out, would you do those things? Right. No. Okay, then you're not a bad person. Right. But it always comes back to that guilt. We feel so guilty that we've done all these things, but it wasn't really us.
That's exactly what
it wasn't. You're looking in the mirror and there's that kind of shadow looking over your shoulder. That's your addiction.
Yeah.
What was your drug of choice?
Cocaine.
Cocaine. I didn't know that.
Cocaine.
I wasn't expecting that either.
Yeah, I know a lot. I get that a lot.
Happen?
Well, I tried it and I didn't want to stop.
Yeah,
I mean,
do you want to stop when you do cocaine?
Same.
Sorry.
The first one's awesome.
Yeah, the first one's awesome, but then it's chasing. Adderall was my thing through college. That's kind of what got me started with learning what speed was, and then I was at a party in Atlanta one time, and it was there, and all my girlfriends were doing it, and I was like, screw it, but all of them slept the next morning.
Yeah.
And I'm out at, the closest dude down the street's house who has it, buying a 20 bag because I don't know how to buy cocaine.
Yeah.
But I know I like it, and I've been up all night doing it, and it's fun.
Yep. I don't remember a lot of my first with drugs, but I remember my first doing cocaine for the first time.
I could remember my first one too.
My jaw wired shut.
Yeah.
Because I had got my jaw broken, got beat up in a bar fight. My jaw was wired shut, and they had it, and I did one, and I remember I went out to Fort Lauderdale, and I was like this, and I was probably trying to talk to every girl in the club, and I'm like, but I have my jaw they don't know what the hell I'm saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
it was locked and wired shut.
Literally, I don't know which was which.
Yeah,
it was one of the greatest nights of my life.
Yeah,
and from then on, it was on.
Yeah. I tell everybody I'm a late bloomer. I was late. They put me on Adderall in high school, and I begged my parents not to take it because I did sports. I wanted to eat. I didn't like how it made me feel socially awkward.
Yeah.
So go back to that feeling. It makes me feel socially awkward. It makes me not want to eat. I don't like to take it because I don't get to do the same things with my friends, or I just feel weird. I feel out of place. But yet, down the road when I get into college, I'm like, oh, if I take 3 of these, I can study. You know, I'm a single. Trying to attempt college.
Mhm.
You know, with my parents, whatever. And then all of a sudden, I'm a raging, you know, speed person, and
Yeah.
you know, just out of nowhere, you know. But I didn't do. I was, you know, prescribed Adderall from the ages of 15 to 19, and I didn't start abusing it until I was 20. Tried coke for the first time at 21. Didn't smoke weed until I was 19.
Wow.
Yeah, didn't drink until I was 18. Besides, like a sip of my mom's like daiquiri on a, you know, on vacation one
Yeah.
time. But you know, there was no alcohol in my house. We didn't serve it at anything family functions. You know, it's sweet tea and lemonade. That's what we drank,
Wow.
and Diet Coke. So yeah,
You were a real late
late
bloomer.
bloomer, and my first shot at sobriety, I was 23.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you get it the first try or?
I mean, I got it for a while.
Okay.
You know, I had 7 years sober before, you know, I did relapse. And it was not the best time, but it's where I learned a lot more about myself than that I didn't get to explore the first time.
Yeah.
I'm more grateful now for it.
Absolutely.
Then and I never thought I would say that,
Yeah.
because my first time I got it. I mean, I didn't get it, obviously I relapsed, you know. That happened.
Yeah.
But my first time I had
That's
some.
probably why you relapsed. You thought you got it.
Well, yeah,
Actually.
it kind of went like that. It was like I literally got everything that I could have possibly wanted. I really had the cliche of life beyond your wildest dreams, and then I was like, nah,
I'll try it.
I can do this. No, it was my behaviors. I
was gonna say
it was my
everyone
behaviors.
always says I don't know. I just did, and it's like, no, what was going on?
Yeah,
before?
like,
I'm
it
sure
was-
you figured that out because here you are.
I had to figure it out,
Yeah.
and it was behaviors that very old ones that like I had promised, like, oh my gosh, I never want to live like this again, because you know it's clean living dirty, you know, and I was like, I never want to do that again. It was part of my problem on so many levels, and it started one by one. And then, you know, it was present for about 2 years before I actually picked up.
Yeah.
Wow.
But see, that's so important, man, because I see people come back and I had so much time. Like, that's cool, but why? You know what I mean? And I hate to be like, and then, but
No,
why?
call it what it
Because
is.
if you don't know, like, you're in real jeopardy.
Yeah, call it
If
what it is. You
can
have
put
to be
years
honest.
together and then relapse and then
not
just
know
think
why.
you're gonna jump right back on, without doing any of the work and figuring out where this shit started, like 2 years before. 'Cause we always hear that too.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
You got to dig deep. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when I came back in, I didn't have excuses. I tried not to. You know, I had the poor me's. You know, I had guilt. You know, I had shame on levels, but it was more like, you know, where the fuck did I go wrong? You know, what didn't I do? What did I do right, and what didn't I do right?
Yeah.
Let me take a look at it. You know, I was successful for that long for some reason, you know, but where was I lacking? You know, because I'm very honest. There were parts of me that I just didn't want to work on. There were parts of me that I thought would slide.
Yeah. Did you stop going to meetings?
I was always a meetings person.
Yeah.
You know, always a meetings person. I don't do that well with them, but I enjoy them.
What do you mean?
So I'm not going to say I'm a religious meeting maker. You know,
Okay.
I'm not a religious meeting maker, but if it's there and I feel like I need it, or I just want to go to just see some faces and just to let everybody know I'm okay, because people want to know, you know, believe it or not,
Absolutely,
they do want to know that you're okay, and you know, so I like to show my face every once in a while, go get something out of it. But even before, not a huge meeting person, but a huge fellowship and sponsorship person.
Okay.
Giving back is a big thing, and I love sitting down with other women.
See, I think that is the important part, but that's why you got to stay in the game, right? Because then you're kind of like I'm not you, but like I'll be a fraud. Like if I'm sponsored or I'm doing, but I'm not doing it myself. But I love I love the fellowship. I love these things. But if I'm not doing the other, I kind of feel like a fraud telling people, you know, or being a part of it. Like, so I try and. That's kind of like a lot of the meetings, especially I just moved from New York. You guys know that. And like upstate New York, and there's some amazing.
Don't they wear suits up there?
Hell no.
No.
That's like an old school thing.
But they still do some of that in New York, right?
I don't know. Maybe they should wear the meetings I was going to.
They were like that.
Like, look, I had some guys that that brought the heat. You know what I mean? Some women that were really good, but man, there was a lot of like, it's not like a good meeting down here, you know. But I still went because it was just part of what I was doing, you know.
It's
And
your
like
routine.
people like you that have had years, like I learned from you guys. Like I hate to say it, and not to like, it's a little selfish, but that's what we are, right? Like I love hearing someone that has 7 years, 5 years, and they relapse because like my ears perk up. Like okay,
because you know it can happen to you.
yeah, that ain't it
no
ain't fucking happening to me,
joke.
because I'm gonna listen to what you have to say,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna do exactly what you say you didn't do. You know what I mean? And that's what and so one of the things is like the disciplines, right? I continue to do those things even when I may not get anything out of the meeting, but maybe that's when I need to raise my hand and share something. You know what I mean? And
Somebody
bring
else
something
might
to
get
the
something
meeting.
out of it. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's something that like I used to like when I do go to meetings, like I have like a little prayer that, like, you know, I say to myself, and it's like, if I can just touch one person in this room, you know, and make a difference in anybody, no matter what I say or what I do or what action I have, like let it happen.
Absolutely.
You know, bring like that's why I'm here. It's not about everybody else. It's
Carrying the
about me.
message, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, that's how we keep this thing going, you know?
How'd you end up in Florida?
Oh, 2013, I went out to Palm Springs, California, and they shipped me down to Florida. They told me I could either go to Asheville, North Carolina, or I could come to Palm Beach, Florida. And to be honest, I wanted to stay sober at that time. You know, that's the one and only time my parents have ever threatened custody of my son on me. And so I was serious, you know, and I came down here and I bucked the system a little bit at first, but you know, I grew up I grew up in South Florida. And I just never left until I did, you know, work took me to Atlanta, but then I came right back down here. I love South Florida. I've been to I've been to meetings all over this country. You know, my work has taken me all over this country, and I like to go to meetings in other places, you know, and get to know like that area, and you know, there's nothing like South Florida, especially with recovery for me. You know,
you hear a lot of people bash South Florida, and I'm like, look,
no, don't do it.
Look, it's a great place to get high. If that's what you're looking for, if that's what you were going to do, that's what you're going to do. It's a great place to get sober too.
You know, I was down in South Florida. You know, I came down here 2013, and we had our times. You know,
Big time,
big times. You know, working in the industry and just being in recovery in general. South Florida was a scary place to be at that time. But the one thing, especially during that, like I remember, they had a news. You know, Katie Couric came down and made this whole news thing on South Florida recovery, and I remember it upsetting me because I had success down here and I had really put in the work, and like you said, like if I'm not looking for it, I'm not going to find it. And I can tell you, and in the time that I was down here, I never had drugs offered to me because I wasn't
don't go to the Checkers on Atlantic. You won't have heroin
like,
offered to you.
I didn't go to places where it would be like something normal. The one time, that's a lie. It happened one time over off of Palm Beach Lakes, and I needed gas so bad, and so I pulled into the wrong gas station, and the guy like shook something at me, asked me if I partied. I was so nervous, you know. I was just like, and I just got in my car and left.
The marathon on Palm Beach Lakes.
It was right there at the railroad, next to not Bud's.
Bud's Chicken, right?
No, not Bud's Chicken.
On Blaine Beach Boulevard.
Jaws is there. I was just there a bit on the tour.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Right over there.
That's the thing. If you're not like I was like the best guy to meet in treatment because like I was never doing the right thing, and I was from South Florida.
Oh yeah,
and all these boys from up north, they're girls from up north. Hopefully.
Yeah, you want to jump a wall?
They'd be
Let's
like,
go.
like yo, you know where to go. I'm like 100%. I know where to go.
Yeah, you got the money.
You're in my hood.
But I'm like, people didn't understand too. Like they don't understand. Like the South Florida, like they see the palm trees. I'm like, listen, when we go down, like this is not, like you think this is paradise, man. Like this is like
it's terrifying.
This is a very bad.
A lot of people don't know.
Yeah, you're in a bad part of town. I just want you to know, like, don't act accordingly, because they don't know when they come from up north. The next thing you know, they're trapped and they're not leaving that neighborhood for a long time.
Yeah.
But because you went looking for it, you got to be careful what you're looking for.
Oh yeah, there's been some horror stories of people, from I used to warn the girls who I would bring down here from Georgia. This is a different animal down here. We're from a small town, everybody knows everybody. Death is there with overdoses, but it's not the way that it is in other areas of the country. And it's a terrifying place. And
especially for women.
And you can get sucked up here real quick, especially for women.
Yeah, forget about the overdoses.
I've had girls prostituted out.
Yes, that's
burned, put in the hospital. Not sure if she's gonna live because she decided she wanted to go get high in Riviera, and they got her. Locked her up in a hotel room, put cigarettes out, and raped her. That's real.
Yeah.
It's not something to play around with, and it's not something that you can't say it's not going to happen to me down here.
Well, that's a lot of the times too. Like I tell people, like say I'm working on somebody that wants to come into treatment, and like you have to realize when you go to treatment, if you want to use, you need to think about the fact that you don't know where you are, you don't know anybody in this area, and you could very easily end up in the wrong neighborhood with the wrong person who you're not used to, so like for you coming from Georgia, right, a rural area, and now you're in Miami and Overtown or Hialeah, you're far away from home, and you could get hurt real quick.
I have no idea where I am. No, I will say, I did use in South Florida, and before it was Atlanta. So,
you were kind of used to it.
You would think, but like South Florida is terrifying. Terrifying. Things happen down in South Florida, and I can honestly say this, that I never thought could or would have. They're things that you hear on documentaries.
Real.
Like,
it's like
you think it's fairy tale, but it really does happen. My last run, I got into some mess with the wrong people. I mean, you can see my lips still to this day.
Really?
I got busted up because they don't over something stupid.
Yeah.
But I could have easily ended up way worse than what actually happened.
Yeah. But in the same breath, like, that's the thing though, right? But if you're doing the right thing down here, there's a meeting on every corner.
Oh yeah.
You
know what I mean? Like, I got the app. Like, I have the app because I travel too, and so like the AA app, and so I go to meetings and I love it, right? Like we have a place in West Memphis. When I went to West Memphis, there's nothing there. There was a casino, and I'm like, oh, that's
we're not doing that.
We won't talk about that. But I went to a meeting. It was like 5 people there, but there was the only meeting in town. You go on our app here, you want 5:30. There's 15 meetings within 20 miles.
Over the place,
everywhere you go. So it's like, again,
and
like
so many different
you tell these
types.
horror stories, and they need to be known, because when you jump that wall or you jump that fence and you think you're just gonna go, once again, because you can't have the anxiety, or you need, your cure, right? The solution to what's going on in your head, because you don't know any better. Be careful what you're jumping that wall for. Because the solution is also in the rooms, and we always,
and that's not just in South Florida too. That's anywhere in California. If you're going to treatment in Indiana or in Texas or in Kentucky,
it doesn't matter.
You have to be aware of your surroundings and know, like, hey, I'm going to this place to do this. And when you jump that wall and you go to get out of yourself, you might not be able to get on the other side of the wall again.
Well, and here's the thing, like, and that's back to the whole thing, meetings. Like, you could jump the wall, and you can get high and a meeting is just as close. You know what I'm saying? It's not like you got to go 20 minutes or catch a ride or anything. Like, as far as it is to go get high, you can get to a meeting around here.
Well, no, I think, no, you come to a point of like that in my mind kind of goes back to like how desperate are you?
Or are you ready to do this?
Yeah, like, are you ready, or are you desperate enough to do this? Because it comes for me, I never really understood, because I've never really chased a high, I guess you could say, before, until I relapsed, and then I finally understood the whole meaning of that that I never really understood before. And it was one of those things that when I came back this time, it was like I chased it as hard as I went at it, if that makes sense, because I was so done and I was so desperate, and I had no means, no nothing, but I was like, I'm going to get better. And I made it happen with no resources. So it's like, you can't tell me that you can't trace it the same way.
Yeah.
You know, sick, up for days, and I'm like, I'm getting better. I'm done.
Yeah.
No money. Made my way to northern Florida. Boom. The rest is history. You know.
So how did you how did you finally get sober again? Did you go back to treatment or?
I did.
Really?
I did. I knew that I had to be taken.
Let me back up. How soon after you used again, after that 7 years?
Way better question.
How soon did you say, oh, fuck,
I need to get out of here?
I just screwed it all up. Like, did you know right away, or was it like, you know what I'm saying? How quick?
Not very.
Not
It
very?
was a long time for me.
Really? How long was the run?
I managed.
Yeah.
I managed for a long time.
Wow.
I was still completely functioning. But I went on a 2-year run.
Now, inside though, you were functioning, but inside, how long?
Broken.
Like, did you?
It was days.
Yeah.
Days. Because I finally like after it had like worn off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember I was still smoking cigarettes. Like I started smoking cigarettes again, which was just not a thing.
Yeah.
You know.
So unlike you.
Oh yeah, like I don't smoke cigarettes. And like I used to smoke a lot back in my early 20s, but I quit smoking cigarettes at, you know, I had not smoked in like 5 years. And I was just like, I'm gonna start smoking again. And I was sitting outside and I was smoking. I smoked Marlboro Smooths, by the way.
Okay,
That was my cigarette of choice.
Really?
Yeah, I liked the vanilla cigarettes.
Yeah, I was thinking of more.
I felt
like
fancy because I smoked Parliaments before.
Okay.
Got
So you
got
could do a
sober.
little bump.
So
I
I could
was
put the
thinking
coke in it.
Virginia Slims for her. You know, the big long ones.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Caroline
the
just-
tiny ones.
yeah, you had the tip
I
on
did
it.
smoke pink camels at one point.
Did
Can you
you?
see that?
I can.
I smoked pink camels
Yeah.
just because it was a pink camel.
I feel like a lot of the stuff you do, we could kind of guess. You know, like,
Probably. I'm
that's
Give me
Caroline's
3
flow.
guesses, I'll pick it.
Yeah, I think I can get it.
but
in 4.
Because I think that's the important thing.
yeah.
Is like the interior feeling. Like
Yeah.
a lot of, because you know, we come across a lot of people. I can't manage, man. Like when
Yeah.
I relapse, so I've only been sober once for 10 months. Then I relapsed, and it was only like 4 months, and it went. You know, but I'm putting a needle directly into my body the minute I relapsed.
Sure.
And so I knew it was over for me.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of people like you, that they're like, oh no, I maintained for a while. It's like on the outside, but like think about what's going on the inside.
Well, my inside had already been rotted for 2 years.
Right. See, there
You
you
know,
go.
like
Yep.
like we touched on that.
behavior,
Yeah, we
yeah.
touched on that earlier. My inside was already rotted
That's
for
why
2
you
years.
probably did it, right?
But I still held on to, well, at least I'm not using. At least I'm not getting high. Like I might be miserable and I might hate everything and not take care of myself. But, you know, and so when it finally happened, at first it was like my first couple of days, you know, even maybe like my first week, it was like, okay, you know, that's cool. Like, all right, like don't let this go too far, you know? And then I'm replaying everything in my head because it's so true. Like when you're that immersed in AA, NA, whatever A you choose, and then you do that, you know, I'd never experienced. I'm sitting here with like one side of my brain, like, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know better.
Yeah.
But the other side's like, well, fuck it. You've already done it.
Yeah.
You know, might as well at least like enjoy it.
Go for it.
100%.
Yeah.
Right? Like, might as well enjoy it.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm going to go to the bitter end. And I knew.
Did you hide it from it? Did you lie to everybody?
Oh, of course.
Right.
100%.
And that's the worst.
Even sitting there, like, tweaked out of my mind in front of my mother, you know, sweating, like, jaw, you know, sitting there. You're crazy. You know, best gaslighter. I'm the best gaslighter.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the best manipulator. You know, and I feel so bad about it, you know, but it's true. That's what I've become.
Yeah.
And even though my mother knew, I wasn't fooling anybody at a point in time.
Of course not.
She knew, but like I would, you know, she would tell me all the time, Caroline, your pride is going to kill you. You know, she and
I like
my
that.
mother has said that my entire life. Your pride is going to kill you.
Pride comes before the fall. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Said that, yeah.
And I am
like
a
that line.
prideful one.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
like that
I
line a
don't
lot.
want. I'm not wrong.
Ever.
You know, ever.
Never.
How dare you
Still
question
today,
me?
you're the same way.
Yeah, like you know,
We deal with this in our morning meetings, you know?
very
Hey,
prideful.
Caroline, you might be a little wrong. Yeah, I don't think so.
Like I think I'm right on this
Yeah,
one.
I'm
like,
gonna run with this one.
you know. So yeah, no, lied to everybody up until the end. And in the end, I remember finally like admitting it and saying it out loud to a few people. But then when they would ask me like, well, what are you gonna do about it? Like, nothing.
I'm just gonna stop.
I'm whenever I'm ready to stop, I'll stop,
Yeah.
or this will kill me.
Yeah.
You know, and at the end, I was ready for it to kill me.
I'm grateful for the way that I hit my bottoms and how brutal they are, and because I would, if I could just dabble, I would dabble and just be miserable my whole life.
Right.
You know? I know a lot of guys got sober out in Texas, and meth is big out there, and they never actually shot meth, right? So they were just rolling the bowl of the meth bowl for 20 years, these guys, and they're a mechanic, or, they got some working job where they can kind of do their own thing. And they're like, been doing it for 20 years, like there's no problem, but they're living a miserable existence, and then they finally come in and they get sober, and then they're like, they realize they get to see it, but it's like, I'm so grateful for the way I just crash and burn.
Yeah,
Boom.
me too.
Thank God when I got sober, my credit had already been fucked for years, so I didn't have that much long, you know what I mean, in my 7-year, process, because I just run it to the ground.
Right.
But thank God, because otherwise, like, that's tough. It's tough to stop when you think, because everything around you shows you that, I can maintain this.
Yeah, this is fine.
And we always base everything on what's around us. So, like, we're not thinking about our interior condition and, like, you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely
how our spiritual life is. Like,
we're
not thinking now. We're like, I can hold it together.
Yeah.
And then slowly just dying and miserable.
It slowly deteriorates you.
Yeah.
It's amazing too that you had 7 years sober, so you experienced all the best of what sobriety was, right? And then relapsed, and then continued to get high, knowing where it's going to take you and where you've been with it. Like, that just shows like how strong addiction is. Like, so for me, like, if I would go out right now and get high and tell myself like I'm just going to get high one time, like, I know I'm not, right? But it's just nuts that it gets there so fast when you know what you just had. It's like you're holding 2 bags and you have to drop one, and one's a Louis bag and one's a Coach bag, and you drop the Louis bag every time because you don't know what's inside the Coach one. Like, all right, if I open this and we get a little deep into it, it might be better than what I have. And it never is. But, that just goes to show like how strong addiction really is. Right? Imagine like 7 years, car, family, everybody loves you, your son, like everything. And then just over one substance, like I'm going to take this path, knowing how good the other path is, Thinking and it's
something
easier too, right?
Yeah, once you're there, it's just easier to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And I don't say that lightly, but it is. Once you've lost everything, like, that's your only friend anyway.
Yeah.
But then my right mind starts coming back and telling me that, like, these things are possible. I've obviously done it before. I know what it's like.
Doing this. I think also why we do things like this, or you go to meetings and hear this, because it's possible, because you hear other people tell your story.
Absolutely.
That was huge for me, right? Like, I always say, like, I went to AA meetings. I got sober at 37. I think my first one was 17 by the courts.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying? That's 20 years. And obviously back then I never listened, but there were times where I would listen to the message, and that's where the hope comes in, right? The second step principle, hope, comes in from people like you sharing that, right? And I can hear a mom get through it. Yeah. Like, cause I know, like, I'm a dad, like, a mother's love is so much stronger. And to hear that, like, that wasn't enough to get you sober, but then to hear that it was, now you are sober and that you did the things that needed to get done. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. But for me, it was like, but the drugs were still working. So it wasn't in the cards for me. Yeah. Like, that's my first step. Is that the dope stopped working. And I remember, like, trying to hit it and I couldn't. And it was like, that was my spiritual experience in my eyes, right? I'm sitting in an abandoned building, or I had no power, no nothing. I'm 2 hours, I'm sweating, and usually I've had to do that 100 times. But I knew when I hit, like, the drugs weren't going to make me feel okay, and that's really when I was like scared to death. And then, like, stories like you guys open, that's when that popped in. I was like, well, maybe I should try this,
Right.
And
I remember thinking like that I couldn't overdose. Like, I had it so set
Tyler,
in my head.
that you were that special.
Well, I used to go everywhere, and all these people would overdose and stuff, and I'd be just, I'm telling you, I'd do unlimited amounts of drugs.
Right.
And I would just be, like, untouched. Like, these kids are sleeping on the floor. Did one bag. Like, I'm through my 30th or 40th bag, and, like, I'm not high. So I had a very similar experience to you.
That's a terrifying place to be in, Tyler.
I remember just staring in the mirror and being like, how is this even humanly possible that I did enough drugs to kill a whole football team in college?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like sobriety test on the side of the road,
Right.
aced it. Like I
Mhm.
couldn't get high anymore, you
Right,
know?
because you get to that point that your body's
Yeah.
just so used
It
to it.
just
Oh, I
don't
used to
work.
watch guys do that all the time.
Yeah.
Because, I was never much of like a heroin or like an
Mm.
opiate user, but, my friends were. And I remember watching it, it scared me.
Oh my
It terrified me,
Yeah.
to know that something that quick
Mm-hmm. And
is
that
so.
powerful too, you
Mhm.
know? Like I had a
Such a-
$500 a day habit with no job, and I got high every day.
Yeah, of course.
You know, 500 a day,
Well,
and I
because
wasn't
addicts were
even getting
smart.
high.
We're so
You
smart.
know, yeah, and
Like,
that's
I
like,
swear by that. I swear by that. We are some of the most intelligent
Mhm.
people. Now, we might not have the most common sense
no,
all the time.
no,
Yeah.
not when we're getting high, at least,
At
yeah,
least when we're getting high,
yeah.
might not have the most common sense, but like applied in the right way, like,
Mhm.
we can really do whatever we
Yeah.
want to do.
And you touched on it before too, like if I could do this for drugs, I could do this
Yep.
for recovery. Like
Mhm.
even if you give 5% of what you gave to your addiction, and it's so cliche, like you said,
Yeah.
but 5%.
Right.
Like
Oh,
if
yeah.
I could go out every day and come up with $500,
Right?
$2,500 every 5 days. That's a lot,
That's a lot
of
of
money,
money.
right? Like that's a lot of money. So we're talking about $3,500 a week. That's more than
Did you-
people get paid that have great jobs. And I made it happen, but like
Mhm.
I can't get sober.
Right.
Like I can't put the work in to get sober, but I'll put all this work in to get high. It's
Right.
it's unbelievable,
Yeah,
like
'cause-
how
Not
our
even to get
brain,
high, just to be all
just to
right.
be okay,
just
right?
to
Just
be
to not be
okay.
sick.
It's funny we use that
That's the
get
crazy
high
thing.
so
Yeah,
much,
yeah,
but it
yeah.
wasn't getting
I
high.
wasn't getting high for a long time.
Long time. No, what do you get high? 6 months,
Yeah.
right? 7
Because,
months.
Again, that $500 would say I was like at $300. It wasn't all coming in one shot. It was
No.
like I was just getting a 20 here. I was splitting a dime and selling him 20 and getting 20. Next thing you know,
You
I
were
got
hustling it.
I'm hustling, but I'm getting $10 at a
Yeah.
at a
Yeah.
clip. So I'm
Mhm.
just feeding my addiction, just till I can get to the next stop.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like there's
The
no
next day.
there's
Yeah.
no enjoyment.
No.
I'm on disability
never
from
fun.
my Marine Corps disability. I would get that on the first, so I'd have like 3 days with some actual money where I didn't have to hustle to get it, I didn't have to do anything. And like, dude, like I would be out of that money in no time because I'm just trying,
Jam as
you
much
know
as you
what I
can.
mean?
Yeah.
And then I'm just right back to the
Absolutely.
run.
Mm-hmm.
There was no enjoying it. There
No.
was never any enjoying it.
No.
Maybe a couple bucks to get a hotel room,
Yeah.
and then but no enjoyment anymore. And I
Right.
can't even tell you. I wish I could not tell you the last time I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know what
Yeah,
I
you
mean?
can't
'Cause
remember.
even when I relapsed after 10 months, I got high as fuck, but I didn't enjoy it because I instantly
it's
knew
not
that it was
fun.
over, bro.
Yeah.
It was
It's in
over.
the back of your head.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know where that's
know.
going.
You know where you're
Exactly.
going. Jails, institutions, or death.
now-
There's no other
Yeah.
anything.
And
Yeah.
thank God. And
Those
like
are
you
where you're
said,
going.
like you said, until that relapse, I didn't really know that it was one and I was done.
Mm-hmm.
Now I got a couple bucks in the bank. You know what I mean? I got some nice shit.
Things starting to
Thank
happen.
God
They're
I
moving.
know that I can't even dabble because
Yeah.
I do that one.
Mhm.
Boy,
off to the
it's
races.
over, bro.
Yeah.
And it's completely.
And it
Bye-bye.
don't take long either,
No.
till the drug dealer's driving your car around, right? And he's wearing
Oh,
your
God.
sneakers. And yeah. We were just
bro.
talking about it
That
yesterday,
happened.
right? Was me
Dude,
and you
I
were
had- I
talking
had
about it
my-
yesterday.
My girlfriend come into the hotel room once, and
Yeah.
the drug dealer was wearing my sneakers. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, first of all, how did you? Where
Yeah.
did you get those?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, but we'll save all the
Story
stories
for another day, right?
Let me ask you this: what was the final catalyst that got you back, or this time? What was the one? Like, was there one moment, or like a feeling that like you just said, I got to get back?
My best friend died
Okay.
that I'd been getting high with.
Yeah.
And I found out through our drug dealer,
Wow.
which just
Crushed you.
who wants to find out that like their best friend of years died by their drug dealer?
The person who probably killed him.
Like the person who probably like sold the drugs and killed him. Who wants to find that out? And so I was actually just talking to a friend about it, and he died on October 6th, and October 15th is my day.
Wow.
So that shows like I was like, you know what? I'm gonna ride out everything I have. I'm already miserable, but I'm done.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be me.
Yeah.
When it hits you that close, that's how you start to feel.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's how I started to feel.
Absolutely.
And this one just hurt a different way. I've had a lot of friends die.
For sure.
I've had a lot of acquaintances die.
Mhm.
I've had a lot of clients die.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was a different kind.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I had been part of the problem as well. And that was a whole nother hurt on a whole nother level that I can't even explain to anybody. You know, I've done therapy over it, and it's been just a different hurt I never experienced. But it was the death of somebody close to me that I felt like even though I wasn't there, even though I wasn't really, it is not my fault, you know, but it is the event that took place that woke my eyes up, to wake me up to be like, okay, something has to change. You know, something's got to be different here, or else, you know, it's going to be my family. And he left behind a daughter, and I said, I'll be damned if I leave my son with nobody.
No.
I mean, not that he would have nobody. But.
Yeah.
So that was my thought too with my daughter was, you know, I don't really deserve her, you know, at that point, but she deserved to have a dad. You know what I mean? She didn't do shit. Like
it wasn't her. Yep.
And so that was like one of the things I thought, like when I finally, first was the drug stopped working. I have to be honest, that's what it was. But then when I thought about my kid, it's like, I still thought it was a piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like, dude, the things I did were unthinkable. Like I can't, even to this day, like I'm like, that was like you said, it wasn't me, but it still was in the physical form. My wife had to deal with me, you know, what I was doing. But it was it was
innocent
my daughter,
bystanders getting slammed because of your actions.
But my daughter mostly, like, she deserved a dad. Whether I deserved her or not at that, now I do. You know what I'm saying? And and I act as such, you know.
But no, she deserves to have, you know, that model in her life.
And for someone that doesn't have kids, like, you know, your family deserves you. You know what I mean? Like, and for anyone that's like, you know, still struggling, like, it's not about whether we do, and we all know that they do deserve, you know what I mean? But like, your loved one deserves to have you. You know what I mean?
Because our family struggles as much as we do. You know, my mom and the sleepless nights
they have to
thing.
feel it. We might be struggling, but they have to feel it. If that makes sense.
And they live it too. You know, like my poor mom didn't sleep for years, and I'm talking no sleep, run a business, take care of 3 kids, like, and my dad, because my mom's the only like chick in the house, you know, like, so her not sleeping and like running our household for as long as she did, like,
which is a hard job.
Look at what I did to her. You know, and that's like, too, you know, for people that are still struggling, like, you got to bear with your families, you know, like, we put our families through all this stuff, and then we get sober, and we're like, what do you mean you don't trust me?
What do you mean
I don't get high anymore? Like,
what do you mean you won't send me money?
I need $500.
What means I have to send you receipts?
You want a picture?
What do you mean you won't let me stay in your house?
Wait, why can't I have a key?
Right.
Well, that's fun. My mom, so I had to get sober in Texas. When I came back to Florida, it was like I had maybe a year, and the pandemic had hit, and we used to sneak onto this court to play pickleball with Brad and them. And one time I didn't tell her I was going to play. I was back visiting, you know, because I know, you know, I was with a bunch of childhood friends. We were playing pickleball, and I go look at my phone after an hour, and my mother called me like 50 times. I'm like,
worried.
Holy shit. So I call her up. She's scared to death because I'm in Boynton where I used to run, and I'm playing, you know what I mean? But I'm playing pickleball. But see, when I was doing the right, most times I'd be like, yo, stop. Why are you calling me so much? You know? But like this time, because I was doing the right thing, and I realized the hurt I had caused her, I was like, look, Ma, I'm gonna put a trap. You know, like follow my iPhone.
Yeah.
Like,
and my mama still has my location.
I'm almost 40 years old at that point, and I'm like, yo, like you could see where I am. You know, if you ever have a problem, I'm like, I'm so sorry because I feel bad because I understand, right?
Right.
And I don't take it personal. Like that's
you can't.
her. She doesn't know where I'm at you know, a year sober. I'd been 10 months sober before and fucked it all up.
Yeah, she was scared.
Know?
Yeah, no, that takes time. I think that was one of my hardest things. My first go around. My second was been pretty easy, you know, it's been all there, but my first time, you know, around, I didn't speak to my mother for about the first 6 months because we just didn't know how to communicate, and I wanted to blame everything on her. She wanted to blame everything on me. Come to find out it's both of us. You know, but it took time. It took years to reestablish that trust. You know, it took years to. I remember the first time my mom was like, "Hey, we left you a house key under the mat," and I was like, "Yes!" Like, wait, what? You trust me in the house by myself? And I never stole from my parents. I sold their sleep, their happiness, their everything, but you know, physically I never saw. But I got to stay in the house by myself. That was a big deal. That was like a monumental moment
Same here.
in the Sexton household.
Yeah.
Now I
You
stole
know?
everything from my parents.
Same.
I stole my mom's gold.
That's one thing
bought
she'll tell you I
everything-
didn't do.
Everything my mother had in gold is melted down at the American Pawn down the
Same.
block.
Right.
But-
Yeah.
but the
my
same
mama
thing.
will whoop my ass.
Yeah.
My
I'd
mom
be
did whoop my
terrified.
ass.
They got to
Yeah.
catch me first. I'm in and I'm out, you know. Yeah, like because you know when I was living in New York and I would come out here for work, I could get a hotel like on the company whatever. But like I love, I'm like no, I'm staying with my mom and dad. The fact that I'm even
100%.
allowed to stay there, like
Isn't it exciting?
it's beautiful, man. It's
Yeah.
beautiful, and you know, and you get to see them recover too, like you know at their pace. But
Come full circle.
cool, man.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Oh,
It is
yeah.
really cool.
I think probably
Yeah, we're
wrap
gonna wrap
a
it
little
up.
bit.
We'll close it out with, if you have one thing that you could tell, you know, the people watching that you would have done, like something that if you knew this and were able to do this in early recovery, you think it would have helped you more. What is it? Not something that you did do. If you could have done one thing in early recovery, what would it have been?
Not give myself such a hard time with everything and not be so hard on myself and not lay I don't know, like I don't want it to sound cliche, but like just to know that like it's okay to be me and that life happens and just to go with it and trust that it's all gonna flow the way it's supposed to as long as you're doing the right thing. Because I was really hard on myself. I'm always really hard on myself, you know, so be kind to yourself.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for having me.
Thanks for
you know?
having me, guys.
Yeah,
Wasn't that bad,
this was
right?
awesome.
It
No,
wasn't
that bad at all.
horrible, but
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
practice makes perfect, right?
Thanks for having us.
No,
really.
it
Want to, right?
it was a pleasure to have you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming
Yeah.
on my show.
You're very welcome. Yeah. We'd like to come back another time, you know?
Yeah,
We'll be here next
we
week.
can be on.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as we like progress in this thing and, you know, we'll get some new people and, you know, maybe we'll check in with you and, hey, how are you doing since we did this last time?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. But you're always around. We're on the
Oh,
team.
yeah,
So
I'm always here.
we know where to find you.
There it is.
Cool. Thank you. Cool.
Oh, we were
Yeah.
still. Oh, I thought that. Did we do like a cut? These guys are probably tired of me.
Well-
You know, they did a close up of me. I have my lip gloss now. If we want to redo it.